Was drafting Bryce Young first overall the right move? Ladies and gentlemen, check the mic from the 33rd team. Okay, so there's been some discussion recently about the Carolina Panthers, about Bryce Young, even about the Atlanta Falcons and Michael Penix that we have pushed back on. And it is unbelievable the pivot that people have made on Bryce Young and how they have just anointed him a good, young, developing quarterback, just like Michael Penix. And we've gotten so far on the other side of things that people have been debating if maybe taking Bryce Young over CJ Stroud was the right move. It's bananas and pajamas. We're going to react to this video and see exactly what they say. Hey, the store is open. Buy a shirt, buy a mug. Limited stock. So if you want your Dome Dog shirt, if you want your boiling hot takes shirt, I love the little crawfish and the little scrimp. You want your mug that, my God, you walk into the break room with that, whew, baby, baby, baby. Get on down to the store. Link in the description. Skrmetta.store is the hyperlink. Okay, here we go.
After 1 year of all these players, and things have changed. So last year at this time, I'll say that a lot, when we were talking Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, it looked like a complete, man, how could the Panthers possibly make that decision? But that's what they did. Number 1 overall, they went with Bryce Young, and it wasn't crazy at the time. Last year at this time, there was probably some revisionist history, right? How could they make the wrong pick? How could they choose Bryce Young over CJ Stroud? And by the way, Texans fans, I'm not declaring Bryce Young overtaking CJ Stroud in the competition here for who's the best quarterback. I have made the statement, though, the last 10, 12 games or whatever, I think Bryce Young outplayed CJ Stroud last year. But
they are not even in the same league, IMO. CJ Stroud, who had a down year last year, mostly because of the Houston Texans offensive line, but still had a down year, still drug the Texans to the playoffs, still won a playoff game. He is, no doubt about it, the better quarterback over Bryce Young. And that's not even factoring in what the Bears had to give up in order to get Bryce Young. Or excuse me, the Panthers had to give up what they had to give the Bears in order to get Bryce Young. They had to give up just 2 of the names, but Caleb Williams, DJ Moore, right? So the Panthers, and we won't talk too much about the actual trade because it's out of Bryce Young's hands. It is what it is. But that is part of this as well, that not only did they take Bryce Young over CJ Stroud, but they said, you know what, let's trade all of this in order to get this player. Let's trade all of these assets in order to get this guy.
Number 1 was Bryce Young. Number 2 was CJ Stroud. Let's start with Bryce and what we've seen so far here, Sam.
Yeah, and of course, remember...
Shit on a stick. That's what he's been so far. Besides 2 games.
Also, it's not just they took him number 1, but they made the trade to go get him.
Yeah.
Right? This was Chicago's pick to begin with. And then Carolina made the giant trade to go up and get their quarterback of the future at number 1 overall. So you're factoring not just, who did they pick at number 1 overall, but what did they give up to go and get him? And that, as you said, is certainly part of the analysis a year ago was sort of like, well, Bryce Young is what he is, but this is the cautionary tale for trading up to go get a quarterback. You have to give up so much that you basically can't put a team around him, because part of the trade to go get Bryce Young was giving up DJ Moore, who was, the number 1 wide receiver in Carolina. So that's part of this whole analysis as well. And then, yeah, you get the actual debate itself, which is which QB should have gone 1 overall.
This is not a debate at all.
And, again, with hindsight, we always had Bryce Young as QB1, basically pillar to post in that draft class. But it was kind of a chaotic one, right? There was Bryce Young, CJ Stroud. There were a lot of people that had Stroud as QB1. And certainly after a year, that looked like by far.
So we did a ton of videos at the time. They're all on this channel talking about, we had some real concerns about Bryce Young. Physically, a quarterback has never succeeded to any, I think Doug Flutie is the only quarterback that pseudo fits the measurables who has had any kind of success, but you don't trade all that to get Doug Flutie. a quarterback of Bryce Young's stature has never succeeded in the NFL. So we had real concerns about if Bryce could do it.
Far the best analysis that Stroud was the best guy all along. I think primarily the people that had that were people that just didn't like the idea that a 5'10" quarterback, that's built like Bryce Young could be a number 1 overall pick type of player. It was sort of like, look, I'm willing to bend the rules a little bit now with evidence of Russell Wilson and, some of these smaller quarterbacks.
But it's not the height. It's the fact that Bryce is 5'10", 175 or whatever he is. I mean, there was a picture a while ago, probably when he got drafted, of him and Mina Kimes. And Mina is like the same size as Bryce Young. I mean, the width of Bryce Young's shoulders. And I'm not saying that that's everything, but damn, at a certain point, you got to factor it in. And Russell Wilson, thick boy. Okay, so it's not about being short. It's about being frail and short and just physically not there. That was the issue.
But let's not take it too far, right? If we've got an alternative option, let's still go for the guy with prototypical size and, who isn't built like a twig. And let's assume that that's going to work. The one thing I think that has changed in the last 12 months is that analysis is just no longer valid. We can still debate, should you have gone?
I don't think so, because the conversation is not, can they have 1 or 2 good games? The conversation isn't, can they do it for, a stretch? The conversation is, can that give you a franchise quarterback? Can that give you a quarterback year in and year out who is going to be so good that they're not only deserving of the number 1 overall pick, but also deserving of the haul that you had to give the Bears to get him, right? So, yeah, a 5'5", 120-pound guy can have success for 4 quarters or 2 games or whatever. But over the long haul, over the averages, it doesn't work out.
Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, number 1. But that idea that you just can't play at a really high level if you're built like Bryce Young is already gone, right?
Again, I don't think so. We know that in a small window, anything can happen. The question is long-term.
Whether he'll do it or not, kind of irrelevant. But we've seen for half a season now, you can not just play at the NFL level, but you can play.
I mean, let's take a look at the grades real quick. I was going to bring this up anyways. Here's Bryce Young's grades from last year. All right, this is PFF. This is his passing grades. All right, so really Bryce Young's, this entire conversation is on 2 games. It's the game against the Cardinals and the game against Atlanta, the last game of the season. The game against the Cardinals, where he gets a 91.7 grade, he is 17 for 26 for 158 yards and 2 touchdowns. Okay? That is his best game, if you're looking at the grades. I'll repeat it. 17 for 26 with a 65% completion percentage for 158 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Texans, or against the Cardinals. Then his other game is against the Falcons in the last game of the season, where he goes 25 for 34 for 251 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. All right. This idea that Bryce Young had this like insane, half of the season, or he turned things around and he was absolutely lighting it up and he was tossing the ball all over the place. 191 yards, 219 yards, 158 yards, 203 yards, 251 yards with a 39.7 grade against the Cowboys at home, thrown in there. Okay. Starts off 32.6, 38.8. And if you look at the year before, let's go to 2023. The year before, ugly. Okay. We all know how bad his rookie season was. It was arguably worse than Jamarcus Russell's rookie season. He had 1 good game in there where he goes 23 for 36 for 312 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Packers. Here's the deal. From where I'm sitting and how I see it, in his entire career, Bryce Young has had 2 really two good games. Two games that you'd see, and you're like, well, all right. I mean, there's something there. Okay. And if you're getting excited for 17 for 26 for 158 yards and 2 touchdowns, well, like I said, it just shows you how bad Bryce Young has actually been. All right. At his best in 2 years, he's been slightly below average at his best. Okay. And now we're sitting here saying, all right, we've seen him be good twice over 2 years. We've seen him be horrific a majority of the time. Let's see how many 30 grades he has. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He has 5 grades in the 30s. That is, I could post a 30. I mean, so let's not get it twisted. Like, Bryce Young's got a stretch of just like phenomenal games. I mean, 126 yards again. I mean, you know, so I just don't. Is the bar that low that he literally just exists twice in his entire career, and now it's like, yeah, maybe he's better than CJ Stroud.
Play and you can ball out at 5'10", 180 pounds.
But those criticisms looked warranted for the first year, plus the first 2 starts of last season. I remember, so we were trying to figure out, okay.
Well, and this start, and this start, and this start, or this not even a start. He just rolls in here. But this start, where he's 19 for 34 for 191 yards, touchdown pick. Like, it's crazy. It is crazy, the Krispy Kreme glazing that's going on.
What does year 1 of Bryce Young look like? What does it look like historically, both from a production standpoint for rookie quarterbacks?
Horrible.
And then just from, I thought, like a feel standpoint. Say, I thought Tua, for the first couple of years, felt like he didn't have a great arm, felt a little slight, felt like he just didn't have NFL tools. And then he gets the Mike McDaniel offense. He plays with extra special anticipation. They're not running RPOs left and right, and you play to Tua's skill set, and it looked better.
I don't think Tua is great, but Tua is way better than Bryce Young. Way better. I don't think. Let's look at Tua. All right, this is Tua last year. Tua's whole thing, and we'll see how it all plays out. After Tua's concussion, there was legitimate question marks about, if he was 100%. Okay. So anything after the concussion, you do have to kind of wonder where he was. But still, this is better than Bryce Young. And if we go back, I mean, this is way better than Bryce Young. These numbers, I mean, Bryce Young, 466 yards, could you even imagine? Okay. And you don't see a whole lot of 30s, all right? So, I mean, some of these are really, really, really high level play. For a second there, I mean, this is a stretch right here of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is a stretch. This is a legitimate half season of about as high level play as you can ask for right here. I mean, this is a crazy stretch, okay? If you look at CJ Stroud, even though last year he wasn't great by his standards, still markedly better than Bryce Young and way more consistent than Bryce Young. Oh, and he walked into a playoff game and won, and then posted an 85.3 against the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay, he goes 22 for 33 for 282 yards, touchdown and a pick, beats the Chargers. Before that, you can see how the season played out. And then last year, he was really good. Last year, really, really good here. Okay. This stretch, I mean, from week 3 to week 12, pretty damn good. This is, again, he's in the conversation there of MVP. There is a difference between these numbers, okay, however you want to look at them, and this. There is a big difference in this, and this, and then any of Tua's years, any of CJ Stroud's years. So, again, this is an insane conversation we're having because of 2-ish games in his career.
I thought Bryce Young had elements of that where the size did feel like an issue. The arm felt like an issue. He just wasn't, looking like an NFL caliber quarterback. And then he didn't have what we loved coming out of Bama was the anticipation. And I loved his natural playmaking, whether it was in the pocket, outside the pocket. I thought he had this great feel for making plays. I think we saw very, very little of that his rookie season. And that started to come out in year 2. So last year at this time, very concerned. And in the production comps we were trying to figure out, it was like, all right, Jared Goff, his rookie season, it was limited. He didn't start playing until about week 12, but it was awful. And not just for the quarterback, right? A lot of this is situation driven. Jared Goff's situation was poor. The supporting cast, the run game, the pass game, the play calling, it was all bad. Bryce Young was in that bucket. Everything seemed off from a supporting cast standpoint and from a just him playing standpoint. We looked at Derek Carr, who I don't think looked awful as a rookie, just wasn't really productive. Matthew Stafford had some bumps. So we were going back and finding all of the people who came out of it. And, of course, there were bad rookie seasons like Blaine Gabbert and Zach Wilson and players through the years who never figured it out and just looked bad. So it's like, all right, in year 2, one of these 2 trajectories is going to happen for Bryce Young. He's either just going to be bad or, maybe he comes out of it. And then 2 weeks of the season happens and it's like, dude, this is worse. Yeah. This looks worse. He can't see the middle of the field. He's not feeling anything. He's forcing it. He looks messed up, right? Like everything's off. They bench him and he comes back and he looks completely different. And not to the tune statistically, right? How many games did we come in on a Monday morning and say, I know he threw for 150 yards, but that was a really good game by Bryce Young. So I think everything did turn around last year, and the Panthers should be optimistic heading into year 3 for Bryce Young.
So if you look at EPA and the adjusted EPA per play leaderboard, like if you just look at a couple of these, right? This is through week 14. You can even see like where should we start? Should we start at 13? Let's do right here. Okay, so Bryce Young is 30th. All right, then we go up. Bryce Young is now 30th again. He is, in this one, he's 28th. In this one, he's 31st. In this one, he is 29th. All right, this is December 18th, so this is late into the season. In this one, January 8th, he is now 21st. In this one, January 1st, he is 21st. In this one, December 18th, he is 27th. January 8th, 19th. All right, so the reason I'm showing you this is that I can hear the conversation that maybe CJ Stroud isn't as good as we think he is. Maybe blank player isn't as good as we think he is. Maybe they're a little further down. But the idea that Bryce Young for 2 years has been horrible, and then at his peak last year, he gets up somewhere in that 21st-ish range, but he spends the majority of the time in that 28 to 31 range. It's hard for me to sit there and say, okay, yeah, now the Panthers have reason to be hopeful. The Panthers really have reason to be hopeful now. Do they? Is it because he's not? Is there reason that they're hopeful because he can because maybe at this point, like being below average is amazing compared to what they thought it was going to be?
Enough of that, Steve. Over 50% of the people listening to this are not subscribed right now, so had no other choice. Like, they did not want to bench Bryce Young. Certainly coming into the season, everything was optimistic. Like, this time a year ago, we were actually, okay, we were pessimistic because it was one of the worst rookie seasons we've seen from a quarterback, but optimistic because everything around him had gotten better. They'd brought in Dave Canales, who had this track record of improving quarterbacks. The offensive line was the one thing that had actually come together already. The wide receiver core was theoretically upgraded on paper with, Xavier Legette coming in and et cetera, et cetera. So, like, we looked at that situation and said, all right, Bryce Young was horrific as a rookie, and not many quarterbacks have come out of that kind of season as bad as it was and become good players down the line. But the situation around him is great, so we expect better from him this year. And then 2 weeks in, you're like, oh, no, this is even worse. Like, he's done. Like, he can't play. They have to sit him down. He played his way to the bench. And when they benched him, it wasn't like, well, let's this is the pathway to rescue him. It was like, we just don't have another choice. At this point, he's probably not going to work out, right? Like the idea that he would be benched, rejuvenate, bounce back later in the season like that. I mean, it was always within the range of possible outcomes, but it wasn't a likely thing. It was like, he's probably done already as an NFL quarterback. And then later in the season, he comes back in and immediately just looks different. It was like he had been reset by the time on the sideline, clicked into gear, and almost everything was good from that point on. And some of it was very, very good. So such an amazing roller coaster ride to go from horrific rookie season, even worse first couple of games of his second season, basically written off, benched, effectively. Your own organization is almost publicly saying, we no longer believe that you're the guy that's going to get it done. And then later in the season, they go back to him because what the hell? And he immediately turns it around and looks like a different quarterback. And now, as you said, we have legitimate optimism, not just maybe the situation is around him is better so he can play better. It's like, if he just keeps playing the way he's playing right now, he's on track to being a really good NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
In which we showed that's just not true. We showed that when you look at the EPA, when you look at the blend, the adjusted, all that stuff, he's on pace to being, if he keeps playing how he's playing, maybe he could get away with being average, but we have yet to see him be really good. We have yet to see him really be good for an extended period of time and prove like, yeah, okay. Again, what we've seen CJ Stroud do, what we've seen Tua Tagovailoa do, you can say, hey, look, I mean, this is like a 6, 7, 8 game stretch here where he's playing like an MVP. Okay, I can hear that. Yeah, you put that together for a whole season, yeah, there's a chance that they could be really, really good. But to catapult Bryce up, let's just, as friends, let's just say 75% of his career has been horrible. All right. And let's say the other 20% has been below average. And then let's say the remaining 5% has been average. I don't see how you can take all of that and say, oh yeah, he could be really, really good.
Yeah, he absolutely is. And look, it wasn't part of our really bad concerns coming out of weeks 1 and 2, where he graded in the 30s from PFF. We were like, man, it's not the offensive line, right? We try to be as objective as possible here, Sam. When the offensive line's bad and that affects the quarterback, we say it. The first 2 weeks, the offensive line wasn't that bad for the Panthers. He was making them look bad, and he was still struggling. That was an even bigger concern. So I think the line was better last year. But when you look at his playmaker situation, it's not like, oh man, it was the receivers carrying him. He had David Moore.
Let me see. I'm just curious here. I'm curious what I'm curious what Spencer Rattler is going to grade out at. Let's see. I'm just curious what some of these grades are. 2024 passing. Like, I mean, I don't know. If you have Spencer Rattler's situation, right? If you have Spencer Rattler's situation where the offensive line is as bad as it is, the wide receivers are as bad as they are, the situation's as bad as it is, I'm not saying you're jumping for joy over this, but this stretch right here is basically Bryce Young's entire rookie year. It's actually probably a little bit better because of the situation that Spencer Rattler was in. The fact that he's posting some of these grades, I mean, compared to this, pretty similar. Even this, even this right here, Spencer Rattler is not dipping into the 30s. Spencer Rattler has never dipped into the 30s. Bryce Young dipped into the 30s after he was saved, after he came back, after he had his resurgence, right? Week 15, posted 39.7. Like week 15, he rolls out here, and he's like, this is when he's supposed to be the man. This is when he's supposed to come back, and everyone's supposed to be like, man, this guy, hold on a second. He's really turned some things around. And I think it's just interesting that we're seeing this conversation about Bryce Young. And we're seeing this like, well, maybe he can do this. Maybe he can develop this. But we're not really seeing that with Spencer Rattler. We're not really seeing well, maybe Spencer Rattler can develop. Maybe he can turn things around. Maybe he can do this. Maybe that he can be great. And for how similar the situations are, especially if you look at that rookie year, I think the narrative's a little interesting.
Or he had Jalen Coker, undrafted rookie. He had Adam Thielen, who did look good, but is getting older. It wasn't the playmakers. That's what I'm most impressed at. And then when I saw Bryce Young making plays in the red zone, going head-to-head with the Chiefs, going head-to-head with the Eagles, and probably should have led the game-winning drive against the Eagles if Xavier Legette doesn't drop a would-be touchdown. Those were the types of things. Again, optimism for the Panthers because of how things went down in the second half last year.
Just repeat that though, like the Eagles, the Eagles that blew the doors off the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Bryce Young probably should have beaten the Philadelphia Eagles late in the season. Like this is the level he was playing at. And the last point there is
again, not to make this a Spencer Rattler video, but look at the competition here. Tampa, Denver, Chargers, Washington, Green Bay, the Raiders, Tampa. I mean, if he beats Washington, if they win at the buzzer against Washington, what is the narrative with Spencer Rattler? Washington was a NFC Conference Championship level team. All right? Like if he gets this win, if the end of the game goes a little bit different, right? Does that completely change his narrative? No, of course not. I just don't understand why the media is so quick to propel Bryce Young, to propel Michael Penix, but act like Tyler Shough doesn't have a chance, act like Spencer Rattler doesn't have a chance. I don't know.
The combination between Bryce Young and his head coach, Dave Canales, like earlier in the season, it didn't look like in those first couple of games. Now, Young was non-functional, so I don't know if there's anything Canales could have done to make that better. But late in the season, the play calling, it looked like he had a much better understanding of how to play to the strengths of Bryce Young, like how to actually get the most out of him, got him on the move, minimize some of these areas that he was struggling with earlier in the season. That combination looks a lot better now as well. So what I think was justifiably an optimistic positive heading into last season is an even bigger one with evidence now heading into this season. Like it didn't quite work the way we thought it would earlier in the season, but by the end of the year, it definitely did. The one question though, so with all this evidence now, did the Panthers make the right call at the top of this draft, right? Was Bryce Young the guy that should have been QB1 with all that we know now between both his couple of years and CJ Stroud's couple of years? Because there were reports, right? That
I mean, I cannot even imagine how you can look at their two seasons, or the 2 seasons of both their careers. You look at everything, how you could possibly deduce that Bryce Young was the correct pick. Is Bryce Young sponsoring this video?
That actually Houston wanted Bryce Young #1 overall as well. And they had kind of got lucky by the fact that Carolina went and got Bryce Young, and the booby prize, the consolation prize for Houston, was actually the better quarterback for at least the first year and a half.
I think with hindsight, I still probably would have taken Bryce Young. I mean, I was fine with Bryce Young, so I'm not ready to completely say, oh, Steve, you were way off. If I had, knowing what I know now, though, I'd probably take CJ Stroud over Bryce Young. I think.
I wonder, like, who wouldn't? If right now the Houston Texans offered CJ Stroud for Bryce Young, what do you think the Panthers would do? I'll tell you what they would do. They would run to the front office or the fax machine and push that trade through. Can you imagine if you saw CJ Stroud traded for Bryce Young? I'll tell you this. If the Panthers would have had their first overall pick last year, they would have taken Caleb Williams. I know that for a fact. They would have punted on Bryce Young and said, we're taking Caleb Williams. They would have pulled an Arizona Cardinals with Josh Rosen and Kyler Murray. For sure. The idea that, again, I can listen to, well, maybe CJ Stroud isn't that good. I can listen to that. But I cannot listen to, well, maybe Bryce Young is that good.
CJ Stroud has shown a bit more than Bryce Young overall. But let me just, look, I know we're going to spend a lot of time on this. Let me just rehash really quick what happens in football, what happens in the NFL. It's not as clean as the shouty shows would make it. Who's the GOAT? This is the guy. He's the best. He's the worst, right? It doesn't work that way. I always go back to the 2016 NFL draft where Jared Goff went number 1, Carson Wentz went number 2, Dak Prescott went in the 4th round. And you say, who's the best quarterback out of that group? Well, in 2016, I'll tell you who was. In 16, it was Wentz. In 17, it was, in 16, it was Dak. In 17, it was Wentz. In 18, it was Goff. In 19, it was Dak, I think. In 20, it was Goff, right? It just rotated.
Yeah, but those are all, and Wentz was really good until the injury. So Wentz is another thing where it's like, who knows what would have happened there. But that's because those guys are comparable. They are in the same tier. Dak and Jared Goff and Wentz, when he was doing his thing, all three of those guys at different times were like MVP level players. Wentz was the MVP favorite when he got hurt. All right, Goff, last couple of years, we've had a lot of people saying, me included, that Jared Goff should be looked at for MVP. Dak, at certain times of his career, was the favorite of being the MVP. And then whatever happens, and they kind of fall off. Like, they're in that tier. Bryce Young is not in the tier of CJ Stroud. So, in some situations, yeah, a draft class can rotate because they're all, they're whatever, 7 quarterbacks, 11 through 15. Like, they're all kind of right there. But that's not how it always works out.
And okay, at the end of that career, it's like, all right, well, Carson Wentz may have had the best peak of any of those guys. Dak has probably had the best career, but Goff has been the most consistent. I mean, all right, what's the answer? Right? So I'm looking at it like, I don't know, Stroud might have the best ceiling now, which usually is attached to pick number 4, Anthony Richardson. Stroud might have the best ceiling. But Bryce Young might, there's going to be years where Bryce Young might be better than CJ Stroud. But if
let's look at Anthony Richardson. I mean, I know this is going to be horrible, but let's see. It's going to be kind of skewed too because of the injuries. Let's see. Can we look at how do we look at this? This is the weekly offense. I need to see his grades. Offensive grades. I need to look at the whole thing. Offense? Is this right? Yeah, this is right, huh? I think so. No, wait, what is going on? I'm trying to find him. You have to do his run and pass. But all right, so if you look at last year, I mean, if I just covered up the name, and you're flipping between these two, and obviously this isn't showing the rushing. The rushing grade is right here, but like we're having a conversation, right? Let's do Richardson in 2023. He's obviously super banged up. Is this the right running grade? I need to take a look at that. I need to see how this running grade is calculated. Retroactively looking at the grades is difficult. But I think Bryce Young is closer to Anthony Richardson than he is to CJ Stroud. And I think Anthony Richardson sucks. I think Daniel Jones is way better than Anthony Richardson.
I had to say right now, I think CJ Stroud will have more good years, than Bryce Young.
Bryce Young has yet to have a good year.
It's just fascinating.
He's yet to have a good 5 games.
Because at draft time, we both thought that Bryce Young should have been QB1. I thought it was reasonably comfortable at that time. 12 months in, you would say complete 180. Like, it's easily CJ Stroud. Even if you still have confidence that Bryce Young can turn it around, what we've seen from Stroud looks special. He's obviously QB1 from this draft class. And then 12 months in advance again, and you're like, all right, the body of work for Stroud has been better than Bryce Young at this point in the NFL. But what Bryce Young showed late in the season, like, that looks like it could be even better than what we've seen from Stroud, perhaps. So I think you're right. Like, on the balance of everything, you probably say Stroud should be QB1. But like, if you're a gambling man, you'd certainly look at what we saw from Bryce Young and be like, man, I like that bet. Like,
I don't think so. Like, I don't think I've seen anything from Bryce Young that I'm like, oh yeah, that peak is way better than CJ Stroud. I mean, I just don't get this one. This one really kind of blows my mind. I mean, honestly, this one really kind of throws me for a loop here. Yeah, I mean, Zach Wilson, obviously horrible, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. And he's had less 30 graded games than Bryce Young. And one of those he threw for 26 yards. One of those, to show you how bad you have to be to have a 30 grade, Zach Wilson went 4 for 11 for 26 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, down at 41.6. So, I'm not saying Bryce Young is Zach Wilson, but I'm saying he sure as hell isn't CJ Stroud.
I'm not cashing this in yet. I'm not taking the payout. I'm going to wait and see how this bet pays off.
A lot's changed in 12 months, and it's been fun. I'm glad. I mean, both quarterbacks have looked very good in various stretches in their career.
Thanks for watching all.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't know. And, this is another, I keep seeing this, and like I said, we talked about this last week, but I just do not understand year in and year out how people are so quick to say the Panthers are good, the Falcons are good, the Panthers are on the up and up, the Falcons are on the up and up, when I just don't know if they are. And the same people are very quick to say the Saints are the worst of the worst. It's just it's very weird how it all plays out. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let me know in the comments below what you think. Would you trade CJ Stroud straight up for Bryce Young? Buy a shirt, buy a mug. See you in the next video.